Live from the chicken wing capital of the world, Buffalo, New York. You're listening to the Childcare Bridge Podcast, your source for the best tips, tools, and tactics on how to market and grow your childcare center, ensuring total domination. Total domination. This is the Childcare Bridge, and this is your host, Michael Tasner.
Hey there, and welcome to this week's edition of the Child Care Bridge. Today's topic is going to be a bit of a discussion around something that I call the gap and the pit. I wanted this to be a little bit more on the mindset piece, because what I'm realizing is that all day, every day, center owners that I'm talking to are going through challenges of where they are today to where they want to be. And they're getting into this zone of, okay, I see all the current challenges that I have. So, for example, I had a call this afternoon with husband and wife team that own 3 locations. And I'm going to leave out the names and where they're located, but they're in the US, 3 locations. Their current enrollments are right around like 130. Average tuition, $250 a week, full-time equivalency. Now, the issue is that because 2 of these locations are a little bit newer, one is new as of this year, one was opened mid last year, so maybe a year and a half old, they're kind of bringing down the numbers to making it to the point where it's not profitable. So they're over here and they're looking at the cash flow challenges that they're currently being faced with. They're looking at all the problems, like how do we get out of this? They get into this space where it becomes tough to see. Now, on the other side, I look at what's the possibility. So we talked about what's the current reality, what's the current situation. So lack of enrollments, that's causing stress in our marriage, that's causing friction with our current team because they're like, hey, are we going to get laid off? Like, we haven't seen a ton of new enrollments. Directors having to potentially shift from one location to another because there's just not enough traction. So there's a lot of uncertainty there, which then creates turnover. So now they're not only dealing with the cash flow issues and challenges, the stress that's now being caused in the marriage. It's really tough to have a husband and wife team. And I have seen a lot of them in childcare, a lot. I couldn't imagine doing it, but that's just me. So now you've got that friction. You've got the turnover with the staff. So that's causing more issues. And then just the stress in general. So you've got all of those things which make up what I would call the current reality and all the problems that you currently are facing. But on that other side, you've got the possibility. So problems, possibility. On the possibility end, they have room for over 300 enrollments. So they could go from 120 to 300. That's a huge gap. They have one of the locations that could add another 60 to 80 enrollments. So they could be pushing 350, even up to 380. Now, if you do the math, they're currently at a run rate of $120,000 a month. But on the other side, they could be at $300,000 a month, $350,000 a month, like gigantic differences. It's being a $1.5 million business to being a $4 or $5 million a year business, like huge differences. And what that does is that widens up this thing called the gap and something that I call the pit. And this concept of this gap and the pit is that it becomes challenging for you to figure out how do you get from here over to here. Now, the good news is that they realize that one of the, if not the first steps towards moving out of all of these problems into a better spot is through marketing. And if you haven't gleaned or learned by now across this show and this podcast, that I fundamentally believe, and I've proven it true, that marketing above all, you need to be focused on marketing. Last week's episode, I talked about how you're focusing on all the wrong things. You're getting in the weeds on hiring and culture and what playground equipment to buy and all of these different things. They're all good things, but what ends up happening is you're then ignoring all the current problems. The problems that you're currently facing are more cash flow problems, anxiety and stress, being overworked, staff that are getting to the place where they hate their job. Like you're getting bigger problems and you're distracting yourself. But herein lies the opportunity. And what I've realized, and it's just started to click for me, that childcare center owners have not made the mindset shifts that are required in order to get from all of your problems and your current reality to go across that pit and that gap to get to the other side of the promised land. I like to call it a fortune map. You might have some of the tactical things that you need to do. So for example, you've got to start and focus heavily on marketing. That is step number one when we're looking to drive more enrollments. That's the base. So great, you know, and you've got this tactic. Maybe you need to enhance your website. You need to get more content assets. You need to start partnering with other local businesses that are similar. Dance studios, martial arts studios, trampoline parks, the aquarium. So you've got all these things that great, you know the tactics. So you got to do this, so that are going to move you closer. But what continues to happen, and I heard it happen on my call earlier today, is that if those mindset shifts are not made, you are never going to be able to get out of that pit. You might be able to make a little bit of traction, but you're going to fall back in. It's almost like quicksand. So let me give you a perfect example. One of the biggest mindset shifts when it comes to growing a childcare center is that marketing is the single best investment you can make in your center. And I have never once met a childcare center owner, regardless of how wealthy they are, how many locations, how well they're doing, they've never told me that that is their single most important function, ever. And they've looked at marketing every single time as an expense. So if we circle back to the example of the center that I spoke with earlier, centers, multiple locations, and we're having these back and forth conversations and we're talking about all the cool things that are included and here's how we're going to help you with your marketing. But we started our conversation breaking that gap and looking at that gap of, hey, you're leaving $150,000+ a month on the table. So we wanted to widen that, and that's a huge gap. We're not talking about closing 5 enrollments. We're talking about millions of dollars a year of revenue as a gap. And again, they're taking that first step. But when we started getting to everyone's favorite part, let's talk numbers. Now, for clarity, we have the lowest, the best investment in the entire industry. No one can come close to how we price our marketing services. When you're comparing apples to apples, no one can touch us with a 10-foot pole. They just can't, because we have the element of scale, and we've been doing this for so long. So I said to him, hey, this is, when we talk numbers, I really hope that you're going to be pleasantly surprised with all these amazing things you're getting. And we got to that section, and it was a shock. Shock is probably a little bit of an overstatement, but we're like, whoa, like, it's the question, was this what you were thinking? Well, kind of, but not. And I started hashing this out a little bit. And I quickly realized that there is no way that this particular center, which is a lot of you, are ever going to be able to get out of that particular current situation that you're in to way on the other side without those mindset shifts. So until in this case, you can see marketing is an investment. It will help me grow. It'll be the number one way that I'm going to grow. The second mindset shift on the marketing side is around lead management. You need to realize that your directors suck at managing leads. I've proven this at every single center that I've ever worked with. So we launched a division to literally do exactly this. We drive you the leads, we book those leads into tours. Like, it's game over. No one does this. And I still get into this back and forth ping pong match of like, how are they going to do this? And well, my director is going to be mad at, and all these things that are in your headspace. So what I want you to look at, and I'm going to give you another example or two, but what I want you to look at is all of the problems that you're currently faced with. List them all, everything. Lack of cash, working too much, like list everything out. Can't find staff. The staff I have, I hate. We owe a ton of money in taxes. Our website stinks. Like, list out all your problems. And then what I want you to do is to think about what are all of the unintended consequences of these problems? What are all the ways that you are being negatively affected? What are all the ways that your team is being negatively affected? Your family, your physical well-being, your mental well-being. So by you being in this spot where you have hundreds of less enrollments than what you can have, what is going awry? And in their case, they're like, we're stressed out. I mean, we've tapped through our retirement savings that we had to make this go. So it is getting very, very stressful. And I need you to do this because you have to feel the pain. You have to realize and have this honest conversation with yourself that something has to change. And it starts with shifting your perspective, shifting your worldview, shifting your mindset so that you can be in a place that can go from step 1 to step 2 to step 3 to step 4, which takes you over to that other side. So look at some other areas in your business that you're having those challenges and start to look at the mindset piece. So for example, let's say you are having an issue hiring and great, we need to maybe redo our job descriptions. We need to invest some more money. We got to put it on more places, maybe raise our pay. Some of the things that you have to do. Again, the tactical stuff. But if you look at your current mindset, if your current mindset is nobody wants to work, everyone is lazy, the team doesn't deserve this amount of money, you start to get in your head of all these things until your perspective can change. How are you going to be able to attract and retain those people that you're looking for? If your mindset is constantly, everyone is lazy and no one's ever going to want to work as hard as I do, and facts, no one is ever going to work as hard as the owner or owners. I learned that one the hard way. I always thought that we have one of our core values, act like owners. But that doesn't mean that they need to outwork me. It means that they need to start thinking more like me. But if you have those mindset pieces that are getting in your way constantly, the only way that you are going to make progress is by starting to shift. And I will be honest with you, I didn't realize this up until probably 6 months ago. I started looking at all the areas, like I was complaining, I'm over here, I don't have as much cash as I want, I nowhere near retirement, not that I want to retire, but I started listing out all these problems. And then I looked at, great, what's the possibility? A pile of cash, could retire anytime. But then I started looking at my mindset. Where was I not in alignment with what needs to change to go on this path, to go through this fortune map? And I had all these messed up mindset pieces that until I started shifting them, I could not progress. So my challenge for you today is to look at the areas across your business, across your center, that they're just not working. Make those lists and look at all those consequences of that particular issue. But then I really want you to study and say, am I acting in the right way to get what I want? Am I thinking in the right way to get what I want? What would someone over here that already has what I want, how would they have to think compared to me as of today? I promise you, it'll start to rapidly change your perspective and rapidly accelerate your results. Thank you to our sponsor, No Joke Childcare. You can go to nojokechildcare.com. They are the leading marketing agency for childcare centers. Greatly appreciate their sponsorship of this podcast. Have a great rest of your afternoon. Michael Tasner signing off. Good morning, good afternoon, and good night. I'll see you next week.